tuning in to the Jungle of the Blue Swan today. We are very, very lucky to have Grammy Award-winning guitarist of the String Revolution, Janet Robin, and I'll pass this off to you before I get started.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm here and I'm representing the band as well. Thank you for having me on today. And today's a special day, too, because it's a big release day for the String Revolution.
There are both bad guys and bad zombies in the music world. And you recently released something alongside Billie Eilish, celloist Tina Guo in Plants vs. Zombies. Did you want to open with that?
Because you caught me on release day, we have released a song, a new single called Bad Zombies. And it's a mashup of the Crazy Dave's theme from the popular video game Plants vs. Zombies, mixed with Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. The reason it's mixed is because Billie and Finneas used to play that game all the time. When they started working on Bad Guy, I think it was that part, da 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 da. They've actually said in many interviews, Rolling Stone for one, that they were highly influenced by that theme song. It was EA Games music executive Steve Schnur who approached the band after we won the Grammy with this idea. And we're like, what? I quickly uploaded the game and then found myself obsessively playing it. And that theme song sticks in your head. It's Laura Shigihara. She's the one who wrote the actual theme song to Plants vs. Zombies. And we started arranging it and talking a little bit with Billie and Finneas, and they just absolutely loved the whole idea. The String Revolution have a lot of great original songs. We are known for rearranging, reimagining iconic covers.
I have a two-part question. I listened to a number of the tracks, namely Englishman in New York, Crazy Train, and Folsom Prison Blues. What you did was different. And so when it comes down to the chord progressions, the harmonics, and some of the plucking patterns you used, those were both layered in a more complex manner and they were mixed differently in terms of the panning. In regards to that, I'm wondering if you can answer, how do you define a classic? And then what approaches did you take to modifying and improving alongside those classic songs?
You cannot play and re-record the songs as is. You got to make it your own. And I'm always thinking about the original artist, like dead or alive. What would they think if they heard their song covered? So I always want to keep that in mind. And at the same time, you must always keep the center, soul, and core of the song. We respect the song. We want to frame it with what the String Revolution does best, which is our guitar playing and weaving three different parts together. And we all have our strengths. I'm a little bit more percussive and kind of come from the rock background. Robert is from Cuba. He's got a lot of mix of genres, one being bluegrass. He's an amazing bluegrass player and slide player. And then Markus Illko got a master's degree in classical guitar, and he's from Vienna. For me, it's like a great smoothie. Boom, 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 boom. And then always keeping the heart of the song. We work with this amazing mixer. His name is Matthew Hyde in London. He knows us. He knows our personalities. He knows each one of our playing. And depending on who's playing what is where he lands us. Either hard pan left, hard pan right, somebody in the middle. Sometimes it changes, and that's how we do it.
One of the things I always loved about the music industry is that there are phenomenal musicians like yourself who temporarily left college and essentially earned a master's degree through the industry, and other people who may have completed masters in music.
What about PhD? Come on.
One of my favorite bands is The Offspring, and Dexter Holland is known for having a PhD in biology. Graffin of Bad Religion.
Guitar player from Rage Against the Machine. Tom Morello, PhD from Harvard.
Fun fact about Tom Morello, when he was playing at Harvard, he actually played alongside a chemist named Caroline Bertozzi, who has the Nobel Prize. When it comes down to the Ghosts on Sunset Boulevard, I'm amazed that you know DOA. Back to your days in precious metal, you were a metalhead. You would attend parties with none other than Guns N' Roses. But the scene has changed a little bit. I'm wondering if you can talk about how the music scene has changed in terms of camaraderie, in terms of how everybody bands together over the years.
That's a really excellent question, especially for today. In the 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a scene here. It was a hotbed of creativity and camaraderie and musicianship. While I wasn't really old enough during the 60s and 70s, in the 80s, it truly was that. Actually, Hollywood Boulevard back then was a little scary. Basically, you had to walk up and down passing out flyers, hanging up posters of your show illegally on telephone poles up and down Laurel Canyon. We felt very included. Our name was Precious Metal, but we were more like glam rock, being very included in that glam metal rock scene. We had a record deal. A couple of them, actually. That's why we befriended Duff from Guns N' Roses and Poison. We wrote a song with CeCe DeVille and Anna Nancy Wilson and Cheap Trick guys. People respected our musicianship, and that was really important to us back in the 80s because there weren't a lot of women musicians out there doing it. There was Vixen, they were another all-female band, and us. And it started changing in the 90s when grunge came along and the whole scene moved to Seattle. Just last night, we played a pop-up event because the LA Jazz Festival, which we were booked to play at, got canceled. It was packed last night, Sean. They opened us with welcome arms. It was sort of like that same communal feeling that we had in the 80s.
You mentioned Cheap Trick, but then you also mentioned Guns N' Roses and Poison and all of these grunge bands, like Nirvana. Grunge is essentially, it's like a mix between metal and punk rock. And
it is, really. Everything in American rock and roll comes from blues. It's purely an African-American invention, post-slavery. So we must all remember that all of rock and roll comes from the blues. It's spread out like a spider web.
People always talked about how punk rock was derived from reggae and ska, which came from outside of the UK. And the technologic progression between compositions, it's reached the point where people don't actually need to be able to read and write music and can even compose alongside world-class musicians like Hans Zimmer without the capacity to do so. I'm wondering if you can touch on how you've seen AI integrate with the music scene. It's here, but it's not going to replace artists as a whole.
You can't stop progress. You're an entrepreneur, and it's tough for artists. We have such a deep connection and relationship to our creation. What's happening now is a lot of musicians who don't have the money, the resources, they're creating their arrangement and their ideas on AI, but then they're wanting to bring it to fruition with real musicians. And I can only say I hope that continues. If you want people to hear your songs, you have to stream it. Do they pay us enough royalties? No, they don't. As a producer, I'm receiving these AI demos and I'm like, wow, this sounds fucking great. But actually, when you get the stems from the recording, they're a little skewed.
There are a number of catch-22s in the industry, whether it's acting or music composition. Do you need an agent? Yes. What does your agent do? Not much. Like, do you yes. How much does streaming pay you? Not much. But, it's still there, and everybody has to play the game. The thing about tech entrepreneurs is that they're somewhere in between an entertainment manager and an actual artist, in the sense that they edit, they compose, they manage, they sort of jump roles a lot at the earlier stages, and that's a lot different than sort of purely being an artist who's got their publicist, they've got their manager, they've got their agents, different kind of framework. So with the LLMs, you're absolutely right. Modifying the stems is a mess. Post-production methods that you can use.
A couple years from now, it's probably going to be a Grammy category, best AI song. Using AI could be considered an art too, couldn't it?
A lot of the irony of AI is that the AI basically does what regular computer programming does without a human, and you just accelerate whatever can already be automated like a million times faster. A lot of the entertainment industry sees the prompts. For people who work in tech and programming, there are all sorts of complex systems you use in terms of engineering and cycling prompts between files and databases and this, that, and the other thing. And there's an entire set of infrastructure, just like you would have teams working in pre-production and post-production in the studio. When most of the industry and entertainment thinks about AI, they see the prompts and they see the LLMs. You have a number of fun and heartwarming stories coming up, getting the wheels of your tour van greased by John Travolta at your first show.
And yes, my first paid gig was playing at John Travolta's father's birthday party where he paid us $100, and I was 12. Randy Rhoads was my guitar teacher. He wrote Crazy Train and a lot of other songs with Ozzy. I have so many people in my life where I can see the whole path. I can just see it all. Of late, with having the opportunity to have worked with Steve Stevens, for example, from Billy Idol's band. I grew up listening to Billy Idol and just obsessing over the guitar. And I don't know why he's never listed on those best guitarist lists, because he's amazing. Having him want to work with the String Revolution was just amazing. And I literally just DM'd him on Instagram. Because I knew he was a Randy fan. I saw him at an event play with Ozzy, and he nailed every single note. It also happens that he's a flamenco player. He studied that before he did any rock and roll. So I knew he also had this sort of acoustic background, and I thought, he's our man for Crazy Train. And I was right. I DM'd him. I said, this is our band, and this is my credits, my background, and here's our track. Would you be our guest? And he said, yeah. Winning a Grammy. You know, that was something I watched when I was a kid. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. In the back of your mind, you're like thinking of your acceptance speech. I didn't know about these other slightly obscure categories like arrangement until it became a voter, you know, which was an honor.
I hate to say it, but when somebody says like having a Grammy, like it means nothing. That's the kind of stuff you hear from people who've won them.
And we're submitting Bad Zombies as well. The Grammys is a little bit different than some of the other awards because it is purely voted on by your peers. There are no media companies or labels allowed to vote. There's so many of my favorite artists, like Bowie, for example. He never got a Grammy. I think he did posthumously after he died with that last record, but while he was alive, he never got one. The Who, for example. I do these rock and roll fantasy camps, and Roger Daltrey was at one of them, and we were talking about the Grammys. Like, fuck the Grammys. We've never gotten a Grammy. And I'm like, The Who's never gotten a Grammy? No. With the String Revolution and any work I do, that's the first thing I'm looking for. Good songs, good musicianship, and overall good humans. We do it because we love it. We want to create. We can't not create. It's like food. Like, you have to keep doing it. Even if you have a label behind you. The label's the ones making the money, you know.
Financial dynamics of getting backed by a label for what used to be a record deal and how liquidation preferences work in venture financing. It's pretty much the same. Coming up in the music industry can feel a little bit like a karate punch to the gut. And the interesting thing about what you mentioned with Billie and her brother is that you entered the industry after picking up a guitar from your own brother. Does any of that dynamic come to mind when you were playing with Bad Zombie?
It's so funny that you said the karate comment, because when I was growing up, I had two older brothers, and, you know, I wanted to do everything they did. I was the only girl and I was the youngest. And so when they took, you know, karate, I took karate. However, what happened in karate was I did get a gut punch and I passed out. My brother started playing guitar, and then my mom was like, oh, I might want to try it too. And that's when I was like, well, I want to do it. Just the synchronicity in that comment. I love that kind of shit. It was literally that thing that happened to me that brought me to like, well, I want to try something else, you know. And it just so happens, you know, my brother Steve, who became a dentist, oddly enough. Well, my father was a dentist, but he was obsessed with music, and we had the immense just luck of being taught by Randy Rhoads, you know. And he wasn't Randy Rhoads, you know, back then. He became the Randy Rhoads after Ozzy, and then he became even bigger after he passed away. But he was so inspirational. Yeah, you know, my brother was taking lessons first on acoustic, so I started on acoustic. Then he wanted to start learning electric, and then, of course, I wanted to play electric as well. And I had to use, you know, his electric guitar until I begged and begged for, you know, my own electric guitar for like 10 birthdays in a row, you know, like that one electric guitar will cover all my birthdays coming up, you know. So I finally got my Strat, you know, at 9 years old. And yeah, I think my brother, you know, there's no question he was the impetus for me starting on guitar and my love for music. But as things change, you know, and you grow up, and, you know, he got more interested in girls and other shit, and, you know, hey, I mean, that's what happens. I was in my room practicing incessantly. I got obsessed with guitar. because I was good at it. I finally had found something I was good at, and I actually liked it. But once, I don't know, something, fine motor skills, and I just, like, felt like a body part to me. I know that sounds weird. It just felt like, and I also felt like a good friend. It really helped my self-esteem growing up, a girl and wanting to do all these boy things, and just, there was a lot of things going on in my mind and my self-esteem, and with guitar, it just took all of that away, and I do owe my brother, that, and my mom too. She stopped playing, but it was also when I saw my mom's going to take guitar lesson. Wow, so that's how that happened, and I think it's great Billie and Finneas have this tight musical relationship, and that's really kind of rare, to be honest with you. I mean, Carpenters, if we're going way back, the Carpenters had that too. Anna Nancy Wilson from Heart. It does happen, but it's such a special thing. You're sharing those genes, and you're sharing that love for that art.
So my father was a physician, and so I never passed out after getting, karate punch to the gut, but my sister did knock the wind out of me once by kicking me in the chest with a cowboy boot. I would think I was like maybe 3 or 4, and I think, like, maybe months earlier I may have hit her over the head with a brick when I was like 2 or something. And so that being said, I can sort of pretend to understand all the nuances of guitar, because I hung around a lot of guitar players. You can't have a rock band without guitars, but I was always the drummer. You mentioned you may have a collection of 100 or so guitars with different types of wood, and then there are cooling temperatures depending on the composition of the guitar. And so what some of that boils down to is that the resonance of a sound wave that comes from picking a string is basically the effects of particles in the air being disturbed by these strings vibration. And so when you see, recording studios that are all wood inside, that's because wood is porous. And if it was something like, plastic or linoleum, the sound would bounce off instead of being absorbed by the wood.
Correct.
So, would you be able to sort of to touch on any kind of acoustic differences and sort of artistic differences you get, between playing guitars and anything of the sort?
Absolutely. I mean, it is, you must have those tools. So if you're a surgeon, you got to have all your tools. And I try to have the best tools possible. And they are all different. You're right. And the wood on acoustic guitars is different than electric guitars, because most acoustic guitars are hollow, and electric guitars are not. They're solid body. The necks are different. The pieces of metal that are on, it's all different, and it's how it's put together and who's putting it together. I mean, that's why when you go to something like the NAMM show, there's a booth for, people who just make frets, or people who just make tuning pegs. I mean, it's literally that detailed. And everything contributes to that sound vibration you're talking about. But most importantly, it's also the player. And we define that by calling it tone. Yes, there is tone, like, tone knobs and shit like that. But when we talk about tone as a player, it's how you, in guitar specifically, it's how you attack your strings and how you press the strings. That's your tone. And every player has a different tone. So when somebody says, "Oh man, Eric Clapton's tone, man, it's just it's smooth, it's got this thing," whatever, they have all these adjectives. That's literally what it means. How he touches the strings, how he uses his pick or not. Lindsey Buckingham, for example, doesn't use a pick most of the time. How somebody does their bends, I can always tell if it's a B.B. King bend, because he has a certain way of doing a bend, and it's like that is a B.B. King bend, it's so and then the vibrations, like you're talking about, the megahertz and all that is also very important, because it's not, physics is not new age, it's science, it's like, so when those particles are put out, the vibration of whatever the megahertz numbers are, it also affects people in different ways, and there are frequencies, I don't know if you know this, that can change change your mood, really. That's not a new age, magic thing. That's a fact. Certain frequencies change your mood, and that's why people listen to certain kinds of music, depending on what mood they want to feel. My website is janetrobin.com as a producer and also original songs and composing. And then The String Revolution is thestringrevolution.com.
Anytime. I appreciate the fact that you did this and everything else. I look forward to staying in touch after it's released if you want.
You got it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sean.